So I ended my last video saying that there's nothing disappointing about that whatsoever. And I think the universe sort of like took that as an invitation to teach me that I was really avoiding feeling disappointment. Um, so since then, I got sick, basically ended up having to cancel Christmas because we're still in a pandemic. The dog knocked over the Christmas tree, and like, I'm not very particular about my Christmas tree, but it never looked how I wanted it to look. And I was sort of like laughing, and I was all good with this chaos that Christmas had become. And I really enjoy not having to take things so seriously. But what I didn't understand until I decided to actually use the emotional guidance scale by Abraham Hicks was that there were still some emotions that I had some sort of like spiritual ego or expectations about how a spiritual person should act. I had expectations that a spiritual person shouldn't have expectations, therefore shouldn't feel disappointment, that were keeping me in like this perpetual kind of feeling of doubt or something like that. So as I journaled this out, I realized that as soon as I was feeling this emotion of discouragement. And so here, let me show you the emotional scale really quick, and I will also link it below. Or you can just Google it and find any image of it. And use it. So I've talked about this a lot. Theoretically, I get this. And the idea that we will avoid feeling anger because we feel like an angry person, nobody likes them, or there's something wrong with feeling anger and nobody wants to feel anger. Not realizing that in feeling, it does feel better than jealousy or insecurity, grief, depression. So we know like the stages of grief, that there's a stage of anger. Well, I understood that, and I understood how it worked with jealousy, that I could think of myself as somebody who doesn't feel jealousy at all and therefore avoid that emotion. And I didn't realize how I was doing it, particularly with disappointment, and some of the other emotions. So as I was journaling this out and I was working my way up from discouragement, as soon as I looked at the scale and I'd worked myself up from overwhelm, I'd worked myself up from blame and worry to doubt, and then I was trying to rise up till disappointment. Boom! I was flooded with this lifetime of disappointments. And I realized that there was just never ever a point in time that I realized it was okay to feel disappointment. And I kind of had this flashback to my mother saying, "Oh, that's such a disappointment." And the emotional discord that I would feel when she said that, because I was not going to give up so easily. And sometimes you find some of the qualities that helped you to push through and believe in yourself and everything, that when you start to really feel into them, that you may have demonized certain aspects of yourself or not let yourself feel certain emotions. So feeling disappointment is really key to letting go of things. And it made me think of the ConMarie Method again, which I think is just such a brilliant illustration of how to truly let go of something. And she says, if you bought a piece of clothing and you spent a lot of money for it, and you never wear it, you're ready to let go of it. And it taught you what you do like. Everything that you don't like, everything that's not serving you, further clarifies what you do like. And when you focus on what you do want and what you do want to keep, it's then that we can truly let go of things. And so as soon as I hit that disappointment, it felt like such a relief to finally be able to feel and like recognize that there were all of these, I'd had all of these expectations since discovery and spirituality, and all these expectations about how I was supposed to be, or how spirituality was supposed to affect the world in some way, to little disappointments like the Christmas tree that just felt, even though I enjoyed the higher perspective of it and wasn't putting in that much like weight on having the perfect Christmas tree to make Christmas a happy time or anything like that. I enjoyed my Christmas regardless of that. It felt good to just admit that it had been a disappointment. So then I noticed, as I did this more and more, I noticed that there was I'm writing out boredom. I hit another one. I was like, how am I supposed to express boredom? And I also noticed some resistance to feeling boredom, that at some point I had decided to think of myself, you see the problem here, in non-duality, no exclusion. So we can't exclude ourselves from anything. And then this is a really good tool to see the things that you've excluded yourself from actually feeling. And as I say, what we think of the emotion is never the actual feeling of it, but sometimes when we think of the emotion, it's blocking us from actually feeling. We're disallowing ourselves from feeling it. So boredom was something that I felt a lot as a child, and the circumstances of my life and being raised in a rural area and like being just like taken to places while my parents worked hours there. I had tons of chances to feel boredom, and I like learned to think, and I learned to create things, and I learned to think about people and why they didn't like me, and all sorts of patterns to avoid boredom, that some of which felt better than boredom, and some of which felt worse than boredom. So rather than like trying to express boredom, this is kind of where meditation comes in. And this is the magic like turning point that is not actually a point, where we go from feeling an emotion that we're resisting to feeling peace, and then greater and greater emotions. So again, boredom is one that the magic of which sort of happens in dropping in the thoughts and meditation. But you can journal your way through these emotions and find some pretty amazing things about yourself. One of the interesting things I had happen is I started to doubt the entire process. Right where I got to doubt, I was literally ready to quit. I'm like, this isn't working. Just journaling this out, this is too structured for me. I like to just write with no structure. Emotional scale isn't working. And then I looked at doubt again and I'm like, wow, this really works. So I've known about this forever, but I guess I've been too proud to actually use it. And when you have a YouTube channel, there's the temptation to be like, hey guys, look at this new shiny tool. It's a hammer, and I have all sorts of pictures with nails that need to be, I need to use the hammer to put them up. But I'm not going to use it because it's just too shiny. I'm going to leave it in the box on the shelf because it's really nice. And so intellectually, I understood that we resisted feeling better by demonizing certain emotions such as anger and jealousy, and I understood that. But I didn't see quite how it played out, especially with those emotions such as disappointment. And I figured that if I was disappointed, it meant that I'd made some expectations, and then I was at fault for having made those expectations. So it perpetuated this whole like cycle of avoiding the direct feeling of disappointment, which there is nothing disappointing about whatsoever.